Hey everyone, welcome back to another Security Shorts with Scott. Super excited to have our guest on with me today. Having lived in the SIEM, data management, logging, importing of data for 25 years, super excited to have Nanda Santhana, who is the CEO of DataBahn, on with me because we are going to talk all things data pipeline management with him today. So with that, Nanda, welcome to Security Shorts with Scott. Super happy to have you on.
Thank you, Scott. Happy to be here.
Nanda, real quick, we do this with everybody. Give us the 30 seconds on how, your background and how you sort of got into this space.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, Nanda Santhana, CEO, founder of DataBahn. Prior to this, I was a co-founder of a SIM company, a leading SIM company. And what I realized was everything was data related. In previous before that, I was also briefly involved with an identity and access management. I think everybody's building stacks on top, whether it's a SIM, a lake, or analytics layer. But I think what we all forget about is how do we get the right data that matters to these systems at the right time? And that's how DataBahn was born. Fun story. I was in Switzerland. I saw everything was so beautifully connected between Switzerland and Germany, and hence the Bahn. So I wanted to name it as DataBahn for high speed data highway.
Love it. No speed limit, as fast as you can go. So Nanda, listen, one of the painful parts of our life for the last 20 or 25 years has been getting data from point A to point B. So almost all of us have spent heaps of time around data analytics. How do we find the bad actors? Doing cool ML, building SIMs. But this concept of logging has literally driven us all crazy. Logs turn off, they don't get to the right place. So walk me through sort of what people need to know, the short version of what is data pipeline management and how does it start solving some problems?
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. See, the problem today is not the SIM or the lake or the analytics, right? It's everything that happens before the SIM, the lake, the AI layer. 15 years ago, environments were all controlled. A handful of sources like firewalls, Windows logs, IDS fed into these SIMs. Even then, the ingestion was a little bit painful, but it was manageable. Today, the environment is completely different. Data sources have exploded across cloud, SaaS endpoints, and even application logs that everybody wants to get to. Only 20% of the ingested data is actually useful for security. The remaining 80% of the data is just noise like debug logs, trace logs, operation logs, heartbeat logs. One side, the data volume keeps going up. The other side, the cost goes up because of that. And meanwhile, you get poor detections quality, unsustainable cost structures driven by ingestion pricing. And then, most importantly, it creates a vendor lock in. You can look at a new age AI solution because all your data is locked in with a particular vendor. So, I think what a modern data pipeline is like us, what we are trying to do is we have built pros the AI era. Our goal is to have a data engineer to collect, normalize, etc. But the key concept of a pipeline is essentially have customers get more telemetry visibility, have no data engineering work, reduce the cost, produce the right amount of data to the right systems, meaning it's not the data that you want to send across all the systems, it's the data that matters to send to the right systems is what this connective tissue called pipeline is all about.
Love that. In our view, we really see sort of the modularization of the SOC. In the past, everything sort of went through a similar platform, but that was designed because the logging sort of had to be embedded in the platform. I think to your point, a lot of organizations and customers just want their data to be in places that they can get to it. And then they can apply whatever modules, whether that's analytics or threat or identity or compliance against that data. And so I think this idea around making that easy makes a lot of sense. Now, to your point around the 20% of the data is security relevant, security operations centers are drowning in alerts. So how does DataBahn sort of help this process around the data, getting the right data to the right people in an easier and effective manner?
Yeah. So first, I want to touch on the previous point that you brought up, right? I think what we're seeing is a paradigm shift in the security space. Almost every CISO that I talk to right now, they want to own their own data in their own data lake, either powered by Microsoft or by Databricks or AWS, Google, you name it, right? They want to own their own data in their own data lake, which basically means they have now separated this whole concept of storage away from a SIM. SIM just purely has become an analytical solution. What we have done is we, at the time of pipeline, and so there is a lot, that's your first mile problem. And you can actually do a lot of work on the pipeline. You can synthesize what data is required for hot detections, where you have a rule set up on your SIM for correlation. You want to route that data in there. Then there is a whole bunch of investigation data, the security data. Our goal is to leave the data where they have originated from. The goal is to go down the path of what I call as ODO, which stands for on demand data orchestration. Send the most important data to your SIM for real time analytics, leave the data where they have originated. Help now an analyst, or very quickly, it's going to be AI agents. And that's what we're working on, Scott. Very exciting times ahead. If it is a user or an AI agent, while at the time of query, our goal is to facilitate the data so you don't have to go through this obsessive architecture where you have to centralize all the data in one centralized location. So the way we help with SIMs get better alert is when we already filter out what really matters to them, they can already see a reduction of number of alerts coming through. They don't have to spend a whole lot of time in data engineering. And most importantly, we are now producing visibility into systems that they've previously not tapped into, like their application logs, your physical security, things that matters the most for business. We are bringing all of the data into your ecosystem, your monitoring ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Obviously, the legacy models, the logging and the analytics and a lot of the other components were integrated, but oftentimes the logging was the place that got the least attention. So the capability of the logging was limited. And additionally, if you log the data, it almost always had to go through some really expensive compute. So this idea around saying, okay, we're going to take data, and depending on the value of the data, we're going to put it into the places that match. So maybe you need Glacier because you just have a bunch of data that you have to store. And then maybe you have, search that is actually, pretty powerful and usable in real time, but you don't want to run that through high-end expensive analytics because it's not really that security relevant. It may be something you want to search, like you said, application logs. So you want to come in there, maybe do some troubleshooting on your app, but you still want those logs in a certain location. So I do massive opportunity on that in that case. Where do you see this going? So obviously there's a theory, he who owns the data owns the world, right? So if all the data is going through you guys, where do you take that, and what comes next?
Now, absolutely. So I think it comes with a lot of responsibilities, right? And the way we see the world is slightly different. I feel very quickly we have some of our customers who are right now cutting edge. I don't see the users be a consumer of this data anymore. It's starting to become more agentic in nature. So one, we send these hot detections to the SIMs. The other side, we, like you correctly said, we are actually routing the data into a lake. For the first time ever, we are starting to see, security teams not just collecting and holding data, they're actually harnessing the data that is actually stored in their data lake for long-term investigations, forensics, incident response, etc. It's because of the way the data is formatted, readily acceptable. And then very quickly, right behind that, we are starting to see a lot more AI agentic, either companies that they have bought, these customers have bought, or customers who have created their own AI agents. They have become a consumer of this data. Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky. When you're routing a data to AI, everybody has this philosophy that, hey, why do we even need to do data engineering work, etc.? Let's just dump all the data to AI and AI will take care. The token cost is a big thing right now, right? And we are seeing that even in DataBahn. How do we make sure that we don't repeat these mistakes just because there is a new shiny toy? Not having a foundation right and having a fancy roof on top is not the solution. It is a first mile problem that we are solving. Making sure the most enriched, normalized data that goes towards your AI agents, that's the future that we're building. And then the second component that we are really excited about is this whole concept of ODO, which stands for on demand data orchestration. Really excited. We're going to make some lot of big splashes and news around that coming here shortly.
Nice. Sounds exciting. Yeah. So if I were to synthesize and summarize, organizations want their data in easily accessible locations. They want to control that data, and they want that data rationalized to the pricing of the underlying things they want to do with the data. So if it's long-term storage, they want to put that in a place that's inexpensive. If it's searchable, that goes to a different location. If it's analytical, it goes maybe to a third location. And inside of that process, obviously, companies are quickly starting to put agentic components against that so they can actually go through and research whatever they want to, whether or not, again, that's a forensic situation or app troubleshooting situation. It gives them power to have a look back and understand in real time. So Nanda, as we sort of close this thing off, what should people take away from DataBahn and this concept of data pipeline management going forward? Is this something that if you're an organization and you're struggling with costs, or you don't feel like you've got your handle around data, is this really where they should start thinking?
Absolutely. I think the best tagline that I could think of, Scott, that you summarized very well right now is the future is not move everything, the future is move what matters, right? I'll start with that. I think the time to think about a pipeline, DataBahn, or any other solution for that matter, what I would tell our customers and prospects is number one, you are spending an awful lot of time with data engineering effort and you still don't have beyond your 101 telemetry, like your application logs, like your sensitive systems, whether it's databases, whatever, infrastructure, etc. So that's number one. Two, you want to reduce and make some space in your SIM so that you can bring these additional systems without going upstairs again asking for money. You want to make space. That's when you need to think about us. Third, you want to have an independent pipeline that actually feeds to different consumers. You collect the data once, you parse it once, but you orchestrate the right amount of data to the right systems. The SIM probably just needs a tad bit of it. Your lake probably needs certain amount of data, and the rest of the data remains where they have originated from. I think that's the third time when you reach out. And the last but not the least, AI is here. It's already here. We are already dealing with new sets of problems with AI beyond the governance, risk, etc., tokenization, utilization, the probabilistic nature of hallucinations, etc. There are more interesting things that are coming up with AI revolution. The key here is all of that can be solved with having your foundation in place, which is a pipeline, a connective tissue in security and IT space.
Love it. Love it. Full transparency to the audience. We're a big user of DataBahn. One of the things we see all the time is customers cannot consume all their data into a SIM. We love SIMs. We've been in the space for 20, 25 years. And so the ability to get the right data to the right places, to the consumer of the data, whether or not that's a human or non-human, really, really matters. And it allows us to fine tune what you, the customer, are trying to solve when it comes to your data, how to store it, and how to use it in the most effective and efficient manner. So with that, Nanda, thank you so much for joining Security Shorts with Scott. And to the audience, thank you as always for tuning in. Hopefully this is useful for you. Hopefully you learned the key aspects and key components and value add of a data pipeline management system. And as always, we'll have another one here in another month or two. So with that, thank you again for joining Security Shorts with Scott, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Thank you.